Okay, so for starters, I just want to thank you guys for joining me on my podcast. I'm Natalie Howlett. I am a third year major at Georgia Tech, and I study literature, media, and communications. And with me, I have.
I am Erin, your mom, Erin Howlett, and I'm happy to be here.
And
I am Erica Berrien. I am a friend of the family and I'm happy to be here as well.
okay, great. So just to give a quick overview on what we'll be talking about today, I think we all talked about it a little bit in the beginning, but for everyone who wasn't there, when I say Black decorum, I think what I mean is like how we carry ourselves in public and what we decide to dress, the music we decide to make popular, like things like that, because how I look at it is I know who I am and I wake up every day and put on what I want to put on. But at the same time, I do understand that how I choose to present myself will be perceived by others constantly. And it's, I guess, in my head, it's my choice whether or not I choose to care about that. So, how was it when you guys were, I guess, coming up in your college age, high school age, whatever? Like, did you guys constantly think about how people were perceiving you, or was that something you were taught to think about, or you didn't really kind of focus on that?
Interesting. I think that, so to level set, right, both Eric and I are in our 50s, which means we were born in the early 70s, late 60s. And so you're talking about a massive time of kind of evolution and revolution for Black folks in this country. And it would be crazy to think that we didn't carry some of those concepts of perception in terms of how Black folks are perceived in America. I would think for myself, my upbringing was relatively casual in terms of, it wasn't necessarily, I think, as strict as it may have been for my parents' generation, but there was definitely a time and place concept that was learned. Mm-hmm. I think that you learn from society as well as from your family. So, leaving the house without looking presentable, which I think is subjective, but still had an understanding, was a real thing.
Mm-hmm. Thinking about the spectrum that you kind of spoke about in time and place, and like how you thought about, okay, well, I'm going to church, so I'm going to wear this, versus I'm going out to eat, so I'm going to wear this, versus I'm going to school. Do you think maybe the challenges like you faced in your youth or your parents faced kind of like changed that perception? Because I think, like, at least for my generation, it's like we hear about a lot and like we go through things, but like we've kind of had it at least built for us, almost like we've been given the platform. And I think that's why maybe we feel so comfortable expressing ourselves in this comfortable manner constantly. Do you think like maybe the challenges that we didn't get to experience helped us miss that mark, and why we need to kind of respect this time and place rule?
I think so. I think, you guys stand on my shoulders. You know what I mean? I think my upbringing's a little bit more strict.
Mm-hmm.
I actually was born right in 1970. That's like after a little bit of, the civil rights movement. And, but my parents were very determined to kind of raise children who had presented in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
I went to private schools, so they were really focused on, this is the way you present to the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, you have to look a certain way. When you went to church, you have to dress a certain way. So I was really brought up in a more structured manner. And when I went to college, I sort of rebelled against that. You know what I mean? I was like, you know what? I want to do something a little different. I want to be a little bit more relaxed. So I kind of still kept a little bit more structured and dressed a certain way, but I still kind of kind of wanted to do something a little different. But as I raised my son, I allowed him and I taught him to express himself. You know, do something, do what you feel. And I didn't want him to feel that same structure that I felt. I didn't want him to feel like he had to grow up in a box the same way I did. So, you know, I feel like we need to, however we're brought up, we should give our kids a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more room, a little bit more freedom, you know, to do something different. It's not that, you know, you don't have the same decorum or the same respect, but you should have a little bit more freedom to express yourself. So,
and I would challenge that. That's where it gets a little messy, because while there is freedom, and I would say that I raise my children the same way, somewhere in that respect factor has gotten a little, that time and place still has a place in Black culture. Mm-hmm. And while I think our generation being post baby boomers, and to Erica's point about that our parents were very much a part of the change of Black culture in this country as young people going through the tail end of Jim Crow and getting through civil rights and establishing Black freedoms. We were like that very next generation, and so there was only there was only so much you could fare from that. While I still think, like I said, we could be relatively casual. We didn't go to school with skirts and dress shoes on, even in a uniformed environment, but it was still understood that I brought you here and I could take you out, and there's a time and place for everything. And so, you know, that was there. And so while I think that we may have raised our children to be a little bit more flexible in that, to ensure their creative spirit is there, I don't know, it feels like it's slipped a little bit with that time and place, because there's still that.
And so do you think that like modern culture, and maybe even like, what do you think plays a role in that shift? Do you think it's social media? Do we think it's music? Do we think it's entertainment? Who we, like our celebrities, like where do you think that, I guess, shift lies? Because I think like when we start thinking about the different generations, like I feel like sometimes I'm on TikTok and I'm seeing millennials saying, oh, I don't want to sound old, but like y'all are out here looking crazy and or like, why are we wearing bonnets in public? And all these kind of like rules that like my generation just kind of decided to be like, oh, like we don't do those anymore. And I feel like I see both sides, but I participate in both. Like there's days where I'm like, okay, I want to present myself. I want to look good. I want to feel comfortable, all that kind of stuff. And then there's other days I roll to bed and I'm like, I just need to go to the grocery store. I don't feel like doing my hair, like all that kind of stuff. And I want to know like if you guys think there's a pinpoint or if there was just an evolving shift throughout time. Like, do you have since you've been here longer than me, like, is there a point where you started noticing, maybe it was COVID, maybe it was social media?
Or COVID. I mean, I think social media, I would say media in general has always played a role in how we see ourselves and each other, because you get to see it. Mm-hmm. So, you know, before there was television, there was the radio, you didn't really get the visibility outside of the printed press. Mm-hmm. You know, and even then there was visibility, but it was limited. So as we've garnered more access to seeing things, it has huge impressions on how we want to be seen. And so as that perpetuates, it does, I think to your point, Natalie, start to shift. It's kind of like what I would consider the kind of overdone young adult. The young Black adult, like the extra eyebrows, the extra lashes, the extra weave. I call that the Kardashian effect. I don't think that would exist without this hyper presence of these very overdone young women that are beautiful in their own right, but they're like really done up. So you have an extreme of that, of like kind of hyper beauty, you know, hyper like aesthetically pleasing and made up to like hyper casual to the point of bedclothes. And I don't think in public, which I don't think would have happened without it being seen. You know, so if we didn't have the same access, I think it would certainly be much more primary to what you see at home and what you might see in your immediate neighborhood or community, whether that's school, church, or whatever, with the extra accelerated media access.
Yeah, and I feel like social media allows people to feel more connected to the celebrity. So it's like, and we're talking about like fast fashion too. Like you can now like look at some of your favorite social media influencers, whatever, and you're like, oh, I could get that. Like what they're wearing to this red carpet event or what they're shooting their music video in, like I can wear that. I can get that and I can wear it to class.
Yeah.
You know? And so we have that. Like I think because of social media, it's like it allows us to feel more connected to our celebrities and like kind of idolize them a little bit less. It's like, oh, like you're
normalize them.
But then it's like, is it normal? Like what celebrities choose to wear, what their wardrobe is, or how they talk and what they sing about in their rap songs and all that kind of stuff. Like, has, I guess, popular culture started fading into like everyday culture?
Absolutely. It's bleeding. It's literally
hemorrhaging.
Absolutely. It literally, there's no line anymore. I mean, the Cardi B's of the world, like that should be, there should be a line.
She's a performer.
We had a line between Madonna and us. We knew that was stage. We knew that was not something you walked around in the grocery store with. The Cardi B's, yeah, that's something I can now act, like you said, access is something you can put your fingertips on immediately. And that's something I can walk around in the grocery store. I can wear to class. I can wear anywhere. And it's not, or the Beyoncé's. I can wear what Beyonce wears on the stage anywhere. And it's accepted. That's okay for some circumstances, but time and place, it's like that concept is lost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and I totally believe in the freedom of expression, but time and place should still exist. There should be some type of understanding of that.
And so my question for you guys, why? Like, why do we think time and place? Is it a Black people thing? Like, do you think white people are thinking about time and place? Do you think everyone's thinking about time and place?
So what was coming up for me as you all were talking about, you know, the casual presence of a Cardi B outfit in the grocery store. So what's coming up for me is respect. And I want to define that a little bit. So the formalities that our parents pretty much had to display in their look was based on equity. It was based on, if you know, here we are fighting for civil rights, meaning that our voice matters, our vote matters, our value matters, our humanity as Black people matter, considering within X decades, but not even decades, they couldn't vote. They had no rights. And so to fight for those rights is fighting for respect. Well, in order for that to even be considered, I had to be equitable. So I'm showing up not even equitable, I'm showing up two notches better than that. So that without question, you're gonna hear me, see me, and receive me. With respect. And so where I think I challenge, I don't want to speak for you, but I feel challenged by this like hyper casual, bonnet in the grocery store situation is that what you're essentially communicating is that I am not worthy of that respect, because that time and place is in reference to how we move in life. So if I go to bed, I wear bedclothes. If I go to a formal dinner, I'm gonna wear something a little dressier. If I go to a business meeting. And so while I can totally agree with the idea that there's freedom of expression, I can't argue that the white man doesn't respect me if I don't look like I respect myself. And so those aren't necessarily white norms, those are social norms.